The only way to break through and go to a higher level and make more income is by leveraging and bringing on some support, which means you got to spend some money. You got to go backwards before you can ramp up and break through and go forward.
Hey, Brian, it's Jeff Landon here.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Good. Hey, I'm a solo agent right now. And, obviously solo agent's pretty profitable business to run. But do you see like the profit increase substantially if you go to a team model, or does it decrease but you get more listings? What is your typical experience with that? I've really been debating, growing and things of that nature.
I'll answer it this way. There's a difference between profit and profit margin. Okay.
Yeah.
You're right. As a solo agent, you have a higher profit margin, which means you keep more out of each commission check. Okay.
Right.
However, if you run a team properly, you will have more profit, but you'll have a lower margin. Okay. And that's true of any business in any industry in the history of the world.
Yeah.
So the richest people in the world have the lowest profit margins. They just have, they're huge businesses, right? So they'll have enormous, let's talk Bill Gates, right? So Bill Gates has got, let's just say he runs Microsoft still. Microsoft has a tiny little margin. They probably have a margin of 1% because he's got 101 billion in revenue and 100 billion in expenses. So he's got a small little margin that's less than 1%. That's horrible math, but you get the idea. But he makes 101 million minus 100 billion is still $1 billion. So he's got a lot of profit, more than any individual programmer would make. Okay. And that's true with real estate teams. A solo agent's going to have this high profit margin, but you might, by the time you pay all your costs and your brokerage fees and MLS dues and whatever little marketing things you do, for example, you might end up at the end of the year keeping, 70%, 60% of your income. But a team, you're usually down 20, 30, 40%. By the time you pay all your operating expenses, your administrative salaries, your pay out buyer agent splits to buyer agents. By the time you do all that, you're, at the end of the year, you're probably at 20, 30, at best 40%.
So you really have to have a strategic plan to ramp up growth quickly. Otherwise, it could be fairly painful.
Yeah, I the way I would put it is you don't get a team until you have overflow business. Okay? So don't get a team to bring you business. If you're not planning on giving any leads away, because one of the things that agents joining your team would expect is a certain amount of leads that you'll need to provide to them. So if you don't have an overflow in leads, then you're going to go out and start buying leads. Well, hell, if you don't have enough business, you should be taking the leads you're buying. You know what I mean? So we really need to get to a place where leads are not a problem. And you're going to see that with all top agents, top producers. Leads are not a problem. And if you do what you need to do, leads will never be a problem. It's one of the first things we say to all our coaching clients is, hey, leads are not going to be your problem, buddy. So if you're running around and you need more business, you got a huge problem on your hands and you got to solve that problem. And I'll tell you, 80, 90% of the agents never figure out how to solve that problem. And it's not because of you or your circumstances or your lack of funds or anything.
Right.
It's just because you're making mistakes. You're not doing it right.
That's super good input.
You're not doing it right. Yeah, you're not spending an hour or two a day trying to get new business, little things like that, because leads should never be your problem.
Okay.
It shouldn't be. And I'm not exaggerating or anything like that. Leads just shouldn't be a problem. Once you start to learn that mindset, then you'll very quickly have an overflow of business. And that's when we want to start growing real estate teams. That's when you bring on help. I mean, think about any business. You don't bring on help until you can't handle it yourself, because you're going to diminish your profit margin by bringing on help. You're going to pay for that help. And so either by commission or by salary, you're going to pay money.
Right.
So it's going to decrease your margin. You better get more revenue as a result of that. And what happens is you build up enough business, and usually for the average agent, that's somewhere, 20, 30, 40 transactions a year. You're going to get so busy in the spring and summer that you're not going to have time to generate new business anymore. especially those 2 times. So you shut down your marketing, you shut down your hour or 2 of lead generation, and then you plateau. That's a problem because every year you'll come back around to spring and summer and you'll hit your head against that ceiling and you've plateaued. And the only way to break through and go to a higher level and make more income is by leveraging and bringing on some support, which means you got to spend some money, you got to go backwards before you can ramp up and break through and go forward.
Yeah, I've hit that plateau.
What's that?
I've never called it a plateau, but like I hit that plateau every year, especially like in summertime where it's just like I stop prospecting and whatnot because I'm working 10 escrows at a time and going crazy. And it's just like frustrating. So
yeah, if you're doing 10 at a time at just one part of the year, in all likelihood, how many units are you closing a year, Jeff?
About 40.
Yeah, so it's time to leverage. There's no doubt about it. Yes, your margin will decrease, but your income will go up. Okay? Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yeah.
Are you guys interested in this? Does everybody like this?
I think it's a great conversation, Brian.
Yes.
Because a lot of us are going to get really, really busy in the next 4 months and be asking the same questions.
Yeah, that's it. And again, the one caveat I'll put on that is let's don't just get real busy with 3 transactions and close 4 this year and think you need to grow a big team. 40 units a year, it's definitely, Jeff is there. Like that's, in fact, you may have outkicked your coverage a little bit. That might be a little further than you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be painful. Here, I'm gonna actually pull up a file that I'm going to show you. This gets kind of heady, but I think you guys will all really like this. I'll probably answer a lot of questions you've had.
One thing I've noticed, Brian, just in my business is I have these, and it's because of prospecting, I have these crazy swings where it's like, I'm handling all these escrows, then I'm prospecting. Handling all these escrows, then I'm prospecting. So my business is like a mountain peak going up and down, which I'm positive isn't healthy. So
Right. That's awesome, man. That's a good, but you're in a great place, man. You're at a place where you're supposed to be, believe it or not. What I'd like you guys to do is take a look. And so you have to look kind of close to take a look at it, but you're going to see what I've done is I've taken it. There's quite a few of these charts out there. The main influence behind this is actually from Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. This is page 157 of the book, but I've changed a lot of these numbers around and taken a few other budget schedules and kind of merged them into one that I think I like a little bit better because there's a lot of different real estate team structures out there. And this, I think, kind of accounts for all of them on average. And I think it works well because it's all based off percentage. So it really doesn't matter what your average price is. But this is an agent that does 8 million in 1 year or a GCI of 240,000. Okay. And I did not fill in the units because that's very different. The median home price in the country is, give or take around $300,000. But in, some of your areas, it's up around $800,000. So it depends, 8 million could be a very different number of closings for each of you. Okay. And then of course now this is the agent that jumps up to 390,000 in GCI based on 13 million. And it keeps jumping up and keeps jumping up and keeps jumping up. And this one ends at 100 million or 3 million in GCI. Okay. So with that being said, if we take a look down here, these are the average operating expenses that we should have in some general categories as we move up through each column. Okay. And you'll note down at the bottom, here's that concept we were talking about, Jeff. The net income of an agent at the $8 million level is only keeping 60% of his income here because I've got some admin expenses he's already putting in. Okay, which you're not, according to you. I don't know if you're spending this much on marketing and lead gen. See, this agent is starting to decrease their profit margin because you're going to need to have these expenses at this level if you want to jump to this level.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the same thing's true here. These are the expenses you should have at this level if you want to jump to this level. And you'll see down at the bottom, the net income, the percentage, the profit margin, 55 to 50% to 45%, it drops. Like we said, all the way up to Bill Gates land.
Right.
But if you look at the dollar amount, it's going up. So the net income's going up. But the margin, the percentage of the income that you keep, the percentage of the GCI that you're earning is going down. And the other, this graph assumes a couple things. Number one, you don't want to work more. So as you move from left to right and make more money, you're not working an increased amount of hours, which Jeff, you're starting to see is an impossibility at 40 units a year.
Yeah.
Without some monstrous sacrifices, right? I mean, you could do it, but you're going to start cutting out family and friends and health and stuff like that. Like things are going to start to go by the wayside. This assumes we're going to hold ourselves in a vacuum with regards to work-life balance. And it shows a way that we can increase expenses and increase income over time if we increase our expenses in a few key areas, which means we need to start paying for marketing and we need to start paying for administrative salaries. Those are your two big operating expenses. And eventually, we're going to start bringing on buyer's agents down here, which is called a cost of sale. Okay. So let me break this down into the few major areas to explain this chart to you. Is this interesting to all you? This is the business side of real estate. I guess a lot of people don't probably bring this out. So good. I will show you. So if we break down operating expenses, I mean, I get very general here because this is a chart and I don't want to make the chart a spreadsheet or everybody falls asleep. So I made a chart. So what ends up happening is your operating expenses, your total operating expenses, which are expenses that you have irregardless of whether you sell any real estate or not. Think of them as like monthly expenses. You know what I mean? Like if you're paying rent or you're paying for mailers or, you know, things like that, you're just going to pay for your CRM, whatever, your admin should never exceed 30% of your GCI. All of these percentages are taken from GCI. Okay. So we do everything off your GCI. So it really doesn't matter so much what your average price is. It's based on your commission income. Okay. Which kind of is the great equalizer of all things. So what we're saying here is your total operating expenses should never exceed 30%. And of that 30%, understand that the bulk of it, over 2/3 of it, 22% of the 30% is going to come from administrative salaries and marketing and lead gen. That's the bulk of it. So as you move from left to right and get rich, like Bill Gates, it's those two numbers that almost always need to be increased the most. Yeah, you probably want to increase your training, your education. You know, I'm a little self-serving there because you got to get a coach or you're a loser. You know, things like that. You know, equipment and supplies. You got to buy pencils, paper. You got to pay a little bit for rent, that kind of thing. So all of those things do go up, yes, but they're peanuts compared to these two big monsters. Okay, so that's your one big expense is your operating expenses. That comes out typically regularly. That's the nut you got to crack. It's no fun. No one likes to pay it because they know even if they have a down month or something, they still got to pay that. And it's scary, which is great. Keeps so many people unsuccessful and the people I coach successful, so that makes us winners. There's a barrier to entry. This is it. I'm showing it to you. This is the barrier. There's another barrier too, and it's called a cost of sale. It's the other way we pay an expense on a team, and that's through a commission. This is less painful. So because of it, most agents make the mistake of doing this first. Well, I'll just bring on a bunch of buyer's agents because I only have to pay them when they sell something. And I just pay them 50%. Well, unfortunately, if you do that first, you are sure to fail. That's why no one does that. However, we still count them as a cost of sale. And this is what you pay your brokerage, anything that comes out of your commission check, right? It's what you pay your brokerage. It's what you pay, your buyer's agents. If you're hiring ISAs and you pay them a commission, you pay them out of that. If you bonus admin out of it, you pay them out of that. That's your cost of sale. From accounting perspective, they call it a cost of goods sold. When you're in the service industry, usually it's some sort of cost of sale or something like that. Same thing. You only sell it. You only pay it if you sell it. Okay. So you're going to see for the average agent, it's very low when you first start off because Jeff, you might, at this level, you might just have one buyer's agent here, maybe even just for part of the year. And so the percentage, in fact, at this level, you probably don't have a buyer's agent. You just pay, your commission split out to your brokerage.
Yeah.
But then you jump over here, it's going to be really hard to do 13 million without another agent involved, right? I mean, that's you selling about what, going from 40 houses up to 70 houses. Well, you're not going to do that without somebody else. 1 or 2 people. So this number is going to go up because you're going to start paying out 50% commissions, but you're happy to do that because you weren't going to get that much in GCI without them. It's stuff you couldn't have had, right? Yeah. So that shoots over here. And as you're going to see, that number keeps going up. That expense is your biggest, look at that, all the way out here, it's your biggest expense. It's 40%. Why? Because you're not doing as much. Out here, you got, a gazillion agents working for you. So of course, a bigger chunk of the GCI is going to come from them. We hope that gets up to very little from you at all. We coach a lot of clients that have very little production of their own at all, and they have all cost of sales. That's really the goal. Mm-hmm. The goal is to step out of it and have, other people, doing a lot of being the laboring oars, and you're the leader running the organization. So we're really trying to cut back how much production we bring, which in a sense is cutting our margin. So almost all businesses we're trying to grow, we're trying to cut our margin, believe it or not, to increase our net income.
It's so helpful. Thank you.
Does that make sense how that works? So this chart by unit, which I will share with you all, I know someone's probably asking for that. I will share it with you. This should tell you when you should be hiring all members of a real estate team, if you can decode it, right? Because you can see right here, like, check it out. Admin salaries, I geek out on this stuff. I really do. This is my happy place. You can see we start getting up here, we got a really high level admin here. And now, we're talking about an admin and a half, maybe 2 admin out here, maybe bringing on a director of operations, because our admin salaries are getting out to 144 to 216,000. Can you imagine paying administrative staff salaries at that level? Well, just understand you're a baller though. Look how much you're making down here. I got no problem if I'm making $720,000 a year paying out $216. I think most of you'd make that trade. But you got to inchworm your way up there, right? I mean, we got to slowly increase and invest in our business to keep making each jump, because otherwise you're going to get stuck at one of these, like Jeff was saying, plateaus right here. You'll just keep banging against it because we haven't gotten this up yet. So as coaches, when we're coaching our clients and trying how to move them, we try to find out why they're getting stuck. It's usually one of these two. Could be down here too. Not enough buyer's agents, not enough admin support, not enough marketing. It's usually one of those 3. Can quickly diagnose. It's one of these 3. And once we figure which one it is, we put some emphasis on it, and then boom, we break through and we're playing around up in this area here. And we're trying to figure out how to get all these dials turned to break through to this one. Make sense? Okay. I'm going to give this to you. Thoughts, questions? Anybody have any questions on that? What kind of marketing? Jonathan, good question. The sky's the limit. I mean, there's all kinds of different types of, I could probably talk for 20 hours on all the different options you have for marketing. You could be buying leads. That would go into the marketing category. You could be paying for flyers. You could be paying for telephone numbers. Even some CRMs are marketing CRMs. This could be all over the map on marketing, all over the map.
Brian, I was going to say, it seems like they should though, because it's my personal anecdotal experience that 75% of agents try to hire a buyer's agent as their first team member.
Oh yeah.
I totally attempt to go down that road, which is just fraught with mistakes and blind alleys. And
that's kind of like what I wanted to do this weekend after spending the whole weekend showing houses. It was like, oh my God, I spent no time with the family, and that's kind of where I'm leaning, and I'm hearing you speak. I'm really, I need to go admin, which is counterintuitive for me, but that's really where I need to go.
Right, because it ramps up the costs. There's the old saying that if you don't have an assistant, you're the assistant though. And so that would make you the assistant for your buyer's agent.
Right.
It's probably the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really is. I'm finally throwing that growth budget in there for you guys, so you guys can download that image and use it. That's totally true, Albert. I've seen it happen. If you're going to start a real estate team with agents, and I've even seen people try to do it with transaction coordinators, like someone you pay per file. It doesn't work. No top teams do that, not for long, because the transaction coordinator just can't bring, and I think we've talked about this in this group many a times, they just can't bring the level of service. All they'll do is just input things for you into the company's computer. They're not going to provide you marketing support. There's, a few things, 3 things really, that a team leader must give to its buyer's agents. And number 1, it's full admin support. Okay. Number 2, it's leads. And number 3, it's training and mentoring and accountability. It's that leadership. So number 3 is leadership, accountability, training, mentoring. And usually the agents don't think they need that last one, but boy, they need that the most. That's the most important one. And then I'd say admin support's the second most important, because otherwise, if they don't use your admin support, or the admin support doesn't take everything away for them, so that when they write an offer, they're done with it, contract to close, they are done, they will get busy when they have a closing this week. And if you have agents getting busy when they have a closing that week, they will not lead generate that week. They're already back in old school real estate. They're not leveraging. They should not know there's a closing this week. It shouldn't even be an excuse. You're taking away all their excuses so that they're successful. So you want them addicted to your administrative support. You want them dependent on it so that they can be all offense. You take away the defense for them. That makes sense. Okay? All right, so I think I've shared that production growth budget with all of you in the chat room, so you can just download it there, kind of give you an idea. And I'll just leave it with this, guys. To me, that was a great question, by the way, Jeff. To me, you need to get to a point here's when you want to do it, to start a team. Like, I think Jeff's at the end of the spectrum. I think at 40, he needs to have done this. Like that, if you were coaching with me, I'd be like, come on, man. I'd be badgering you about this every freaking week. Like, because 40, it's there. I mean, that's nosebleed time. But at 20, you should be thinking about it. In fact, if you're real confident, you can hire in advance of the need. I'm okay with that at 20. 30 is definitely to me, because nosebleed's right around the corner. But if you're 20 and you still want to grow and you're on a trajectory of selling more and more each year and you feel like you're going to sell more next year, then I'd start thinking about it. Might as well hire in advance of it and get it there. 40 though, for sure.